Hey YouTube, this is The Art of Prepping. I got some interesting information here. This information is for everyone. It's not just for preppers, but it's something that I just want to put on my channel because I think it's worthy of it. Sometimes there's going to be general informational videos that will apply to everyone, and this is certainly one of them. Of course, all my videos apply to everyone. It's just unfortunately only a certain amount of people or a certain type of people take advantage of that resource. In terms of other types of focuses on the channel, I do want this channel to be open and welcome to everyone. So even if you do stumble upon this video or my channel, feel free to always comment or be part of the community because we're a growing community, a growing family of always trying to learn new things to better each other and to have a better lifestyle, to be better people. Now, this information is very critical. It's talking about calorie restriction, long-term and intermediate fasting, and longevity research and well-being. It's kind of a lengthy little read here, but after making many notes, going to various resources, including the National Institute of Health and Mercola and many others, I've written down a couple pages worth of notes that I think is worthy. I knew about most of this for over a decade now. This information's been out for a long time, but there's some new things it's more refined, at least the information, than it was, and I think this pertains to all of us in great ways. This is very important, overall it's just great information to have. Now, in terms of calorie restrictions, what am I talking about here in fasting, and what does it mean that there's connections to well-being? So basically, I'm going to just read this out. Hopefully, this will read fluidly. I try to put my notes. I rewrote it a few times so that it kind of flows a little better. So here we go. Calorie restriction is typically about 30% in average calorie consumption, not to the point of being nutrient deficient, but it is a type of restriction that you don't eat to excess or even eat until you're full. So whatever pretty much that you typically eat to feel full, just pull back about 20 to 30%. Some people do more, but you do run a risk of being a little more nutrient deficient. And you don't want to be any deficient at all. So we want to make sure that you eat enough, but just pull back on the calorie portion. So what we find when we do this is that the body has three main energy sources. The first one is through carbs, which pretty much modern society lives off of that reserve of energy, or that source, carbohydrates. The second one, of course, for the first one, the carbs, it turns into glucose, and that glucose gets stored. And as we'll talk about later, there's a certain amount of reserve that you have that it causes a chain reaction and causes your blood sugar to go down a little bit and stuff when that reserve goes down. The second, though, food source, or energy source, I should say, is fats. And this is kind of something that we don't typically tap into because we have multiple meals a day and we don't have any kind of other reasons why we don't eat, so we do eat. But should we eat that much? And the third type of food source is protein. Now, this typically is only, your body only uses this when it doesn't have any carbohydrates or fats. Not that your body can't burn and metabolize protein from time to time, but typically you don't want the protein to be from your muscles. You just want it through your diet. So we definitely don't want to be in starvation mode in that sense for our own protein to be broken down. So what's interesting is that we do not need any carbohydrates to live or to create any energy reserve. So when these carbs are used up, and this is typically in an 8 to 12 hour period of time, these carbs that make up that glucose reserve in various parts of our organs. It takes 8 to 12 hours for it to be burnt up. The body then transitions to the fat reserves. And so eating large amounts of carbs or as a primary energy source could and does, for most people, cause a lot of inflammation. And this is a point that we need to kind of stress here because carbohydrates, they have a tendency to inflame tissue and cause a lot of disturbances in the brain that the research has shown. And this could be a lot. This could be actually a whole video, so we'll continue on. But let's just say that it causes a lot of inflammation for sure. Now, fats and proteins are a lot cleaner and more stable energy source than carbohydrates. So that's something that we want to kind of move more to, in particular the fats to burn. This is kind of, not only does fats have a lot more energy per metric of grams, but it is also a much more stable way to keep your blood sugar in the same level and to give you consistent energy over time. The 3 meals a day. This is kind of a fallacy. Let's just be honest. This is something that's really a modern thing. People typically ate when they felt like they were hungry. I know a lot of Native Americans, especially those that I know of, the history goes back to that when they got hungry, they ate something. And sometimes it was only 1 meal a day. And that was pretty normal. They didn't have all these carbohydrates. They typically ate things that were fat and protein rich. And that did the thing. That got their needs met. And while I'm not saying you shouldn't have 3 meals a day, I'm also saying, though, that a lot of people can get away with a lot healthier lifestyle and become a lot healthier with just 1 or 2 meals. And there's actually a way you can do this. So this is this 3 meals a day is not always the best method of consuming nutrients or energy. This is because it feeds into no pun intended I have here, the roller coaster of blood sugar, which endures up and down when we use up and when we replenish the glucose reserves. So when we getting hungry, that typically is because our glucose is low, and when we eat, within about 20 to 30 minutes, it spikes back up. And that up and down, that wear and tear, that causes inflammation too in the vascular system. Okay, next thing is it is true that you can eat many small meals throughout the day. I even tell people to do this sometimes, and it helps to propel or increase your metabolism to burn at a higher rate. But it may be better, though, if you go by this research, it might be better to tap into your fat reserves and not constantly try to maintain a higher and higher level or a steady state of carbohydrate or glucose energy source. So, even though that's kind of what like a lot of nutritionists say, just eat like 4 to 6 small meals through the day and you keep your metabolism up and you burn more. But what they won't tell you is that typically you won't start burning fat that way because you still have enough carbs typically. So if you want to do that, though, you want to start cutting out the carb sources in those little diets and simply do more healthy fats and proteins and minimize your carbs. So here we got, but in terms of here, it says, so it is true that you can eat many meals throughout the day and propel your metabolism to burn higher and higher, but it may be better to set up a slot of time in which you eat. Now, this is what I'm getting at. So instead of trying to eat 3 square meals a day or 4 to 6 little meals, which may be okay for some, what they're saying is set up a time slot, a window of time that you would eat. For example, you can set up an 8-hour window to eat from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And this gives you a time to eat 1 or 2 meals, obviously, in that time period with no problem. And it gives you a minimum of about 16 hours, roughly 16 hours of fasting. It could be more depending on when you stop eating in that time period. And this gives your body the opportunity to burn for up to 4 to 8 hours after the glucose reserves deplete. So even if you did eat carbs in that window of time, after the average person's glucose level depletes and you burn it up between 8 to 12 hours typically, if you are fasting for 16 hours, and you won't really feel that like you're fasting because it'll be most time when you're sleeping and a little bit in the morning. For example, in that time window we just said, between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m., you're still able to tap into, not only did you burn up all the glucose, that you're tapping into your fat reserves and you're burning fat for 4 to 8 hours a day. So that's actually pretty good. That's called intermittent fasting. And that's what we're getting at here. This is a good little method to do. The research shows that a 30% reduction in calorie intake compared to control populations, and this is with animals, obviously. They didn't do this with humans. They weren't allowed. But there's a lot of different animals, and there's like many studies that back this up consistently. So they're just using this particular number, 30% reduction in calorie intake or caloric intake compared to control populations yielded a 30% longer lifespan. And that's across the board. I mean, that's even with like insects, I believe, and mammals. And so there's something going on there. There's a lot of technical information that I'm going to skip over, but there's plenty of technical information of why this happens. The body produces various elements that helps this happen, but it's very fascinating. Low-carb meals used with intermittent fasting and calorie restrictions allow the body to burn fat as a primary energy source to produce more fat metabolizing enzymes for a cleaner, more enduring energy level. Since the 1930s, science has known that health benefits of calorie restriction and fasting slows aging, helps heal diabetes, fights cancer growth, and stimulates cell growth. And of course, ultimately, though, you have a really pretty high increase of an immune response. Your immune system actually really does get bolstered by this. Okay, so I'm on page 2 now. When fasting, it is better and easier to do the intermittent fasting than a full 24-hour fast. So obviously here it's common sense that most people do not have the willpower to go a full 24 hours. And so what you can do if you do the intermittent fasting, most of that is obviously when you're sleeping. But what happens is that you have 16 hours, just for example, that we talked about earlier, of fasting per day, even though you're having, a solid 1 to 2 meal, no problem. Most of the time you can easily have those 2 meals, but you're still able to tap into your food that you like and burn up the fat and use that as a partial source of energy while building those enzymes to metabolize the fat, which gives you a lot more, different options. Though in a SHTF situation, you'll have the body already set up for both sources of energy already. Now, in terms of intermittent fasting, it says they both, the fasting and the intermittent fasting and, of course, the calorie restriction diet, they both work in a friendly way, a very much more friendly way when you just simply don't eat until you're full. You keep about 30% from being full, and you simply just create a window instead of fasting for a full day. That's going to be a lot more effective and more realistic and doable, something you will carry through day in and day out than just having like every 2 or 3 days you just skip a whole day of food. Okay, now this is interesting. Fasting boosts human growth hormone, the HGH, and it boosts this human growth hormone 1,300% in women. This is from fasting again, 1,300%, and 2,000% in men. The HGH is partially responsible for fitness levels and muscle growth. So by fasting, not only do you have possibly more neural connections, muscle growth, overall endurance, and fitness ability, but you're actually doing this in a healthy manner just because you're not overly stimulating your body and overly inflaming it through carbs. And this is all coming from mainly the fat reserves when you burn that so clean. Okay, fasting boosts also BDNF, a protein which stands for brain-derived neurotropic factor. So brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF. And this is a major element needed for brain growth through stem cell growth. It kind of helps promote that stem cell growth. It leads to new neurons. So, this is another thing that happens when you fast, that you actually build more neural pathways and you build the brain up and you stimulate the brain. It's very interesting. This is not talked about, very much. Even though I knew a lot about this, I really kind of got back into it recently, and I just have been sitting on this for a while, and I was like, I have to talk about this more. In closing, though, when you switch carb foods, especially high-carb foods like breads, pastas, and pastries for healthy fats, found in foods like avocados, eggs, butter, and coconuts, you're going to get a much, much cleaner and healthier energy source. Lastly, fasting and reduction in carb intake and a restrictive diet intake has been linked to decreases, massive decreases or complete elimination in some cases of oxidative stress in the body. And the increase, though, on the other side of the capacity to resist stress disease states, and aging. Now, aging is kind of like the tippity top here. It's just the cream on the top. Not only do you feel better and you're healthier and you have more brain activity and more neurons and even muscular mass when you do this fasting and intermittent types of fasting, as well with calorie deficiencies, or just minimizing your caloric intake. You also get that awesome benefit that you're going to live longer. I mean, live longer. I mean, seriously, like we're talking anywhere from 20 to 40% on these average studies. That's why they came out with an average around 30%. If from most creatures, that it's like 30 freaking percent when you have around a 30% reduction. This is amazing. I mean, there's actually a lot of case studies as well of individuals only drinking water and getting all their nutrients from high-end supplements. Individuals that were over 400 pounds and literally lived over a year, well over a year, just on their fat reserves. And basically their body got used to it. It created the enzymes to be more efficient in burning the fat, and they survived, and they actually are healthy, and they're still alive and doing well today. And of course, they're at a very healthy weight limit now, or weight amount. But this is why we're not talking about this. We're not talking about the other two energy sources. We're so focused on carb loading, making sure we have all this glucose reserve from carbohydrates. But we forget, especially in our preps, we forget though to have that good fats and the protein. We need to have that. In fact, not only do we forget to put a lot of that more in our actual cache or in our food reserves, but we also don't even have our body primed to metabolize it as efficiently, or even have the enzymes set up to use it. So this is just really a call to everyone that if you want to weather hardship more, I know this is a long video, thanks for staying so long. If you want to weather a hardship, activate those enzymes and get your body used to switching over from carbohydrates to fats. At least you'll have 2 of the 3 that are down pat, And so this is just an educational video. Hey, I learned a lot too, looking this stuff up over recent time periods, and keep growing. There's a lot more details though, people. If I feel like, I want you to really get some interest and try to look into this further. There's just so many more details to this that are fascinating about how all this works. This is just kind of this kind of the cream on the top of the latte, if you will. I mean, this is just the top, the little apex of. I'm trying to just condense all this in one little video, and it's very difficult, but it's really cool. Science is just amazing how it's put this together, and the body is even more amazing that we can do all this. And so you guys be careful, be safe, be healthy. Check into this restricted diets, calorie restriction, fasting, intermittent fasting. Look all this up. Learn a little bit about this. This is definitely a type of prep, type of knowledge and lifestyle that'll not only keep you living longer, which is super awesome, but gives you more mobility and more flexibility, though, also in the capabilities of your body being able to burn various types of foods more efficiently for food and energy, especially when there might be limited amount of carbohydrates. You guys take care. Catch you real soon.